Hello legends, I am Chen. Let's begin the story.
I still remember the day Commander Valari walked into our War Council chamber, laughing. Actually laughing. His thorax was vibrating with amusement, and his mandibles were clicking in that way that meant he'd just heard the funniest joke in the entire Galactic Assembly. "The humans," he said, barely able to contain himself, "have declared war on us." The entire council went silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then everyone started laughing too. I mean, come on. The humans, those soft, squishy bipeds who showed up to the assembly 50 cycles ago, acting all friendly and cooperative? The ones who traded in art and music and literature? The species that sent diplomats instead of dreadnoughts? The race that actually apologized when their cargo ships accidentally crossed into restricted space? Yeah, those humans. My name is Carthex, Chief Military Analyst for the Vrothian Dominion. And let me tell you something. We had absolutely, positively, catastrophically no idea what we were dealing with. None. Zero. Zilch. We thought we knew humans. We'd studied them. We'd traded with them. We'd shared meals with their ambassadors, listened to their bizarre music that somehow made you feel emotions you didn't even know you had, and watched their entertainment broadcasts that always seemed to end with everyone hugging and learning valuable lessons about friendship. Sweet, peaceful, naive humans. That's what we thought. Oh, how wrong we were. How spectacularly, earth-shatteringly, universe-alteringly wrong we were. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up a bit and explain how we ended up declaring war on the single most dangerous species in the known galaxy, while thinking we were picking a fight with a bunch of pacifist poets. It started, as most galactic disasters do, with a trade dispute. The Vrothian Dominion, in our infinite wisdom and definitely not overinflated sense of superiority, decided that human trading vessels needed to pay a special protection tax when passing through our territory. 30% of cargo value. Standard extortion. Really. Every species paid it. Every smart species anyway. The human ambassador, a small female named Ambassador Martinez, came to our council to negotiate. She was tiny, maybe 1.6 meters tall. She had these dark eyes that seemed to absorb light, and she smiled constantly, always smiling. It was actually kind of unsettling. "Honorable members of the Vrothian Council," she said, her voice calm and measured. "We respectfully decline to pay this tax. Our vessels will continue to use the established trade routes as outlined in the Galactic Commerce Accords of 2024-7. Brel, who was chief military commander even then, laughed right in her face. "And if we simply seize your ships, little human? What then?" Her smile never wavered, not even a flicker. "Then we would consider such actions an act of war, Commander Valari, and I promise you with complete sincerity you do not want that." The entire council chamber erupted in laughter. I'm not proud of it now, but yes, I laughed too. The thought of these soft little creatures threatening the Vrothian Dominion, which commanded 1,700 warships, controlled 42 star systems, and had subjugated 9 different species over the last 3 centuries. It was absurd, hilarious, ridiculous. "Roar," Vrel said, wiping his compound eyes. "You have what? Maybe 40 combat vessels in your entire fleet. We have more fighters on a single carrier than you have total military ships." Ambassador Martinez stood up, smoothed her formal attire, and looked each council member directly in the eyes, one by one. When she got to me, I actually felt a chill run down my spine. There was something there, something cold and ancient and utterly terrifying hiding behind that pleasant smile. "Commander Vrel," she said quietly, "you've seen our merchant fleet. You've seen our exploration vessels. You've seen our diplomatic ships." She paused, and her smile finally changed. It got wider, much wider. "You haven't seen our military, and if you're very, very wise, you never will." Then she left, just turned around and walked out, leaving us all sitting there in stunned silence for about 5 seconds before the laughter started up again. 3 days later, we seized a human cargo vessel in our territory. It was carrying medical supplies of all things. Bandages, antibiotics, surgical equipment. Humanitarian aid heading to some colony world that had been hit by a plague. We impounded it, arrested the crew, and demanded the 30% tax plus penalties. The human response came exactly 12 hours later. It wasn't a diplomatic protest. It wasn't a strongly worded letter to the Galactic Assembly. It wasn't even a military transmission threatening consequences. It was a video broadcast that went out simultaneously to every government, every news network, every communication system in all of known space. The video showed a human male, older, with gray hair and more decorative metal on his uniform than I'd ever seen on any military officer from any species. He sat behind a simple desk with a flag behind him, blue with white stars and red stripes. I later learned this was the flag of the United Earth Nations, humanity's unified governing body. "My name is Admiral James Kowalski," he said, and his voice was like grinding metal, "commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. 72 hours ago the Vrothian Dominion was presented with a choice. They chose poorly." He leaned forward, and I swear, even through a recorded transmission, I felt the temperature in our council chamber drop. "The Vrothian government has committed an act of war against humanity by seizing one of our vessels engaged in legitimate humanitarian operations. They have imprisoned our citizens. They have stolen medical supplies meant for dying children." He paused. "We gave them every opportunity to reconsider. We tried diplomacy. We tried negotiation. We tried warnings." Another pause. Longer this time. "They laughed at us." His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went from cold steel to absolute zero. "The Vrothian Dominion will now learn what every species in human history that has chosen war over peace has learned. You will learn what total warfare means. You will learn what humanity does when we stop being nice. You will learn what it means when we drop the mask and show you who we really are." He stood up and the camera angle widened to show at least 50 other human officers standing at attention behind him, all wearing the same grim expression. "We gave the Vrothian government 72 hours to return our people and our property and issue a formal apology. That deadline expired 18 minutes ago. As of this moment, a state of total war exists between the United Earth Nations and the Vrothian Dominion." He looked directly into the camera, directly at us, and I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a juvenile running from predators on my home world. Pure, primal, instinctive terror. "To the Vrothian military, I say this once. Surrender now. Return our people, pay reparations, because what's coming next?" He shook his head slowly. "You're not ready for it. You can't be ready for it. No one ever is." The transmission ended. We laughed again. Of course we did. We had 1,700 warships. They had maybe 50. The mathematics were simple. Commander Villar immediately ordered our second fleet, 300 vessels strong, to the human border. "We'll crush them in one engagement," he declared. "This will be over before the next cycle begins." The second fleet reached the human border system of Proxima Centauri exactly 36 hours later. They lasted 11 minutes. When I say they lasted 11 minutes, I need you to understand what I mean. I don't mean they fought for 11 minutes and then retreated. I don't mean they held out for 11 minutes before surrendering. I mean that 300 Vrothian warships, including 2 dreadnoughts, 15 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and the rest frigates and support vessels, ceased to exist as functional military units in 11 minutes and 47 seconds. The reports from the surviving ships, and there weren't many, didn't make any sense. The commanders were raving, traumatized, talking about things that couldn't possibly be real. "They came out of nowhere," Captain Threx reported, his voice shaking. "No warning, no signatures on our sensors. Just, suddenly they were there, hundreds of them. Ships we'd never seen before. They moved wrong, attacked wrong, everything was wrong. They had weapons that passed through our shields like they weren't even there." Another survivor screamed. "Our armor just melted. Melted like ice in solar wind. They knew where we were before we did. They hit us from 3 dimensions at once. How do you attack from 3 dimensions at once?" The tactical data, what little we recovered, was even more disturbing. The human vessels, and we counted at least 400 of them just in that one engagement, moved with impossible precision. They operated as a single unified organism. Every ship perfectly coordinated with every other ship. Their weapons technology was centuries beyond ours. Their defensive systems seemed to operate on principles that violated known physics. And the casualties. Oh, the casualties. Of 300 Vrothian ships, 273 were completely destroyed. 24 were disabled and captured. 3 escaped to tell the tale, and those 3 were only allowed to escape. We found messages carved into their hulls with some kind of precision laser weaponry. 3 simple words, repeated over and over across the damaged armor plating. "Stop now, please." Commander Villari stopped laughing after that. The Galactic Assembly convened an emergency session. Every species in known space was suddenly very interested in this war between the Vrothians and the humans, mostly because they were trying to figure out how a species everyone thought was harmless and peaceful had just annihilated a fleet of 300 warships in less time than it took to eat a decent meal. The Assembly demanded that humanity explain themselves, demanded to know where these warships came from, demanded to know why they'd been hiding such overwhelming military capability, Ambassador Martinez attended the assembly session. Still smiling, still polite, still absolutely terrifying. Now that we knew what was hiding behind that pleasant exterior, "Honorable members of the assembly," she said, standing at the central podium while thousands of representatives from hundreds of species watched. "Humanity has never hidden our military capability. We simply never advertised it. When we joined the Galactic Assembly 50 cycles ago, we chose to lead with our culture, our art, our desire for peaceful cooperation. We meant every word of every treaty we signed. We genuinely wanted peace." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But we're not stupid, we're not naive, and we're not defenseless. Humanity learned a very long time ago through bitter experience on our own world that if you want peace you'd better be prepared for war. So yes, we built a fleet, a very large, very capable, very advanced fleet, and we kept it in reserve, hoping we'd never need to use it. But you did use it," someone shouted from the gallery. "You destroyed an entire fleet." Martinez's smile finally faded. "The Vrothian Dominion committed an act of war. They seized our vessel. They imprisoned our people. They stole medical supplies meant for dying children. We gave them 72 hours to make it right. They laughed at us instead." Her expression went cold. "So yes, we used our fleet. We used exactly enough force to neutralize the immediate military threat, while minimizing loss of life. We could have annihilated them completely. We didn't. We disabled most of their ships rather than destroying them. We allowed survivors to escape. We even sent the message, 'Please.'" She leaned forward, gripping the podium. "We don't want this war. We never wanted it. But if the Vrothian Dominion chooses to continue, if they choose escalation over surrender, then we will show them, and anyone else watching, exactly what total warfare means when practiced by a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting it on themselves before we ever reached the stars." The chamber went absolutely silent. "Humanity has walked through fire," Martinez continued quietly. "We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions, plagues that killed half our population, and 2 global nuclear wars. We've fought ourselves in every conceivable way over every conceivable reason. We've refined warfare to an art form, then a science, then something beyond science. We really hoped we'd never have to show that to the galaxy." She looked directly at the Vrothian delegation. "And the dichotomicid a voice of Bawekta would say, but here we are." Commander Verlari, to his credit, didn't laugh this time. He stood up, all 4 of his arms spread in a gesture of defiance. "You may have won 1 battle, human. 1 battle. We have fleets. We have armies. We will mobilize every resource, conscript every able-bodied Vrothian, fight you on every world and in every system until what?" Martinez interrupted. "Until we're forced to do to your home world what you forced us to do to your second fleet? Commander, please, I'm begging you, surrender. This doesn't have to continue. Never." Varel's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Vrothian Dominion will never surrender to inferior creatures. We will rally our allies. We will—" "You don't have allies anymore," a new voice said. Everyone turned. It was Ambassador Felixia from the Kraknian sovereignty, one of the Vrothian Dominion's oldest and most reliable partners. "The Kraknian sovereignty is formally withdrawing from our mutual defense treaty with the Vrothian Dominion, effective immediately," Felixia announced. "We want no part of this war." One by one, every other Vrothian ally in the chamber made similar announcements. The Telmian Republic, the Gorvan Collective, the Slyke Hierarchy, all of them, abandoning the Vrothians like rats fleeing a sinking ship. I watched Vrel's face cycle through emotions: anger, disbelief, fear. Then, finally, settling on stubborn pride. "Fine," he shouted, "we'll fight them alone. The Vrothian Dominion has never needed allies to—" That's when the second transmission came through. Admiral Kowalski again, but this time the view behind him showed something different. Instead of officers at attention, the camera showed space, dark space filled with stars. And ships. So many ships. The counter in the corner of the display kept climbing. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. It finally stopped at 14,736 vessels. "This is humanity's home fleet," Kowalski said calmly, as if showing off 14,000 warships was a perfectly normal thing to do. "It guards Earth, our colonies, our trade routes, and our allies. It has never in its entire existence left solar space." He paused. "Until now." The camera zoomed out, showing the massive fleet beginning to move as one coordinated entity. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The Vrothian Dominion has been given multiple opportunities to end this conflict. They have refused. Very well. The home fleet is now en route to Vrothian space. Estimated arrival time is 96 hours. We will accept your unconditional surrender at any point before then. After that? He shrugged. After that, we'll accept your unconditional surrender while standing in orbit above your capital world. The transmission ended. I looked at Commander Valari. He'd stopped moving, stopped talking. He just stood there staring at where the transmission had been, his compound eyes unfocused. 14,000 ships, he whispered. They have 14,000 ships, and that's just their home fleet. That's just the one that guards their territory. How many fleets do they have? Someone asked from the gallery. Ambassador Martinez answered, her voice sad. 16 actually. Well, 15 now. One is currently en route to your space. 16 fleets. 16 fleets of thousands of ships each. We'd seen maybe 50 total human vessels in all the cycles they'd been part of the assembly. We'd thought that was their entire military. We'd been so wrong. So there we were. The mighty Vrothian Dominion, staring down the barrel of the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. And all I could think was, how did we miss this? How did an entire galaxy miss this? The answer, as I would later learn, was embarrassingly simple. We saw what we wanted to see. Humans showed up talking about peace, cooperation, cultural exchange, and we just assumed that's all they were. We never looked deeper. We never asked questions. We never wondered why a species that had only achieved faster than light travel 60 years before joining the assembly had technology that seemed to work on completely different principles than everyone else's. We never wondered because we didn't care. They were small, friendly, and harmless. Or so we thought. The 96 hours between Admiral Kowalski's transmission and the arrival of the human home fleet were the longest of my life. And trust me, I've lived through 347 cycles. I've seen solar eclipses, comet storms, and that one time the capital city's waste management system failed during the Festival of Lights. Nothing, and I mean nothing, compared to those 4 days of waiting. Commander Valari tried everything. He recalled every single Vrothian warship from every corner of our territory. He activated the reserves. He even, and this is the part that still makes me want to laugh and cry at the same time, he even sent out a call to mercenary fleets offering triple the standard rate for anyone willing to help us fight the humans. Guess how many responded? Go on, guess. Zero. Not a single one. In fact, 3 different mercenary captains sent back messages that were variations of, "Are you insane? We're criminals, not suicidal. Even the pirates wouldn't fight humans." Let that sink in for a moment. Meanwhile, I was tasked with analyzing everything we knew about human military capabilities, which, as it turned out, was basically nothing. Oh, we had plenty of data on their culture, their art, their literature, their music, their food, their entertainment. We knew more about human cooking techniques than we did about human combat tactics, although in retrospect maybe we should have paid more attention to their entertainment. I spent one of those 96 hours watching human military films. Films with names like Saving Private Ryan, Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket, and something called Starship Troopers that I'm still not entirely sure was supposed to be satire or a training manual. Every single one of them depicted warfare as total, brutal, uncompromising, and absolutely horrifying. And these were their entertainment. These were the stories they told themselves for fun. I remember sitting in my analysis chamber, watching a film called The Battle of Thermopylae, 300, and thinking, these people celebrate last stands. They glorify fighting against impossible odds. They turn suicide missions into heroic legends. What kind of species does that? A terrifying one, that's what kind. The human fleet arrived exactly on schedule, 96 hours after the Admiral's transmission, emerging from faster than light at the edge of the Vroth system. Our long-range sensors picked them up immediately, and the duty officer who was monitoring the screens actually fainted, just straight up collapsed. I pulled up the tactical display and felt my 3 hearts all try to stop at the same time. 14,736 vessels, just like Admiral Kowalski had said. But the scanners were showing something else too. Something the Admiral hadn't mentioned. Those are orbital stations, I said, pointing at 50 massive constructs among the fleet. Mobile orbital stations. Each one is larger than our biggest dreadnought. What do they do? Brell asked, his voice hollow. I have absolutely no idea. I admitted, our databases have nothing like them. We would find out soon enough what they did. Oh yes, we would find out. The human fleet didn't attack immediately. Instead, they formed up in a perfect sphere around our outermost defensive platforms, maintaining exactly 100,000 kilometers of distance, and then, they just sat there, waiting. It was psychological warfare at its finest. We had assembled every functional warship we possessed, about 900 vessels after the disaster at Proxima Centauri. 900 ships facing 14,000. The math was not in our favor. After 6 hours of this standoff, another transmission came through. Admiral Kowalski again. But this time he looked tired, actually tired, like this whole thing was exhausting him. "Vrothian, Dominion," he said, "this is your final opportunity. Surrender now. Release our people. Return our property. Pay reparations for the families of the crew members who died in your custody." Wait, what? Died in custody? Our intelligence reports said the prisoners were all alive and well. Vrel's face went gray. "Check on the human prisoners," he barked at his aide. Now, the aide rushed out. Kowalski kept talking. "We know that 3 members of our medical ship's crew died while in your detention facilities. We know that 2 were beaten. We know that 1 was denied necessary medication. We have this information from sources we will not reveal, but I assure you it's accurate." How did they know that? How could they possibly know that? Our detention facilities were on the planet. The humans were in orbit. For these deaths, Kowalski continued, and for your refusal to end this conflict peacefully, the price of surrender has increased. You will now release all prisoners, return all property, pay reparations, and you will turn over the individuals responsible for the deaths of our crew members to stand trial under human jurisdiction. Vrel's aide ran back in, looking terrified. "Sir, the prison warden reports that 3 human prisoners did die. He says it was accidents, equipment failures, nothing intentional, but 3 humans are dead," Vrel said quietly. 3 humans died in our custody and somehow they knew about it before we did. I was starting to understand something. Humans didn't just have a powerful military. They had intelligence capabilities that were operating circles around our entire security apparatus. They had spies, sensors, informants, or some combination of all 3, embedded so deep in our systems that they knew what was happening on our home world before our own government did. "You have 12 hours, Kowalski said. "After that we will consider all opportunities for peaceful resolution exhausted. And then, Vrothian Dominion, you will learn what total war really means." The transmission ended. Vrel looked around the War Council chamber. Every officer, every analyst, every strategic advisor was staring at him, waiting for orders. "We fight," he said finally. "We are the Vrothian Dominion. We do not surrender to inferior species. We do not bow to threats. We fight, and we show these humans that they may have numbers, but we have courage." It was a great speech, very inspiring. Lots of chest thumping and mandible clicking. Everyone cheered. I didn't cheer. I was too busy running probability scenarios through the tactical computers. The results were all the same. Total annihilation in less than 30 minutes, no matter what strategy we employed. I tried to tell Valari, "Commander, the tactical analysis shows." "I don't care what your computers show," he snapped. "Courage, honor, glory. These things cannot be calculated." He was right about that. They couldn't be calculated. Unfortunately, neither could they stop high-energy particle beams from turning our ships into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The 12 hours passed. Our fleet moved into defensive formations. Our orbital platforms powered up their weapons. Our ground-based missile batteries went to full alert. And then, exactly 12 hours and 0 seconds after his last transmission, Admiral Kowalski made good on his promise. The human fleet moved. I've tried to describe what happened next to other species, other analysts, other military strategists, and I always fail. Words just don't capture it. It's like trying to describe color to someone who's only ever seen in black and white. The human ships didn't just attack, they performed. It was like watching a dance, a symphony, a precisely choreographed performance where every movement had purpose, where every action flowed into the next with perfect timing. They came at us from every angle simultaneously. Ships above, below, port, starboard, vectors we didn't even have names for. Their weapons fire was so precisely coordinated that it looked like solid beams of light connecting their fleet to our defensive positions. Our orbital platforms lasted 4 minutes. The mighty defensive installations that had protected Vroth for 2 centuries, that had enough firepower to glass a small moon, lasted 4 minutes. Those 50 mobile stations the humans had brought, they weren't weapons platforms. They were electronic warfare stations. They hijacked our communications, jammed our sensors, fed false data to our targeting systems, and generally made it impossible for our forces to coordinate any kind of meaningful defense. Our fleet tried to fight back. They really did. 900 warships firing every weapon they had, launching every missile, deploying every countermeasure. It didn't matter. The humans had shields that seemed to operate in multiple dimensions. Our weapons would hit them and just stop. Not explode, not bounce off. Just stop existing in normal space. Meanwhile, their weapons passed through our shields like they weren't even there. And their targeting. Oh, their targeting. They didn't just destroy ships randomly. They were surgical. Precise. They targeted weapon systems first, disabling but not destroying. They wanted prisoners, not corpses. Even in the middle of total warfare, even while they were systematically dismantling our entire defensive network, they were trying to minimize casualties. It made the whole thing somehow worse, like being beaten up by someone who kept apologizing while they did it. 23 minutes after the engagement started, it was over. Not because they'd destroyed everything, but because there was nothing left capable of fighting back. 742 Vrothian warships sat dead in space, weapons offline, engines disabled, life support barely functioning. The remaining 158 ships had their commanders screaming surrender over every communication channel simultaneously. I sat in the War Council chamber, watching the tactical displays, and I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The sheer absurdity of what had just happened was too much. We'd declared war on these people, we'd laughed at their warnings, we'd mocked their ambassador, we'd killed their people, and they'd just defeated our entire military in less time than it took to have a proper meal, while actively trying not to kill us. Commander Valari wasn't laughing. He was just staring at the displays, all four of his arms hanging limp at his sides. They're not even using their full strength, he whispered. Are they? This is them holding back. Yes, sir, I confirmed. Tactical analysis suggests they could have annihilated us in under 5 minutes if they'd wanted to. They're trying to preserve life. Why? He asked, sounding genuinely confused. Why show mercy to an enemy? Before I could answer, another transmission came through. But this time it wasn't Admiral Kowalski. It was Ambassador Martinez. She appeared on every screen in the capital city, in every government building, on every military vessel, on every communication device across the entire planet. And she was still smiling. People of the Vrothian Dominion, she said, her voice gentle, almost kind. Your military has been defeated. Your government can choose to surrender now, or we can proceed to phase 2 of our operation, which involves orbital bombardment of military targets on your surface. We really don't want to do that. Please let this end here. Phase 2. There was a Phase 2. Of course there was a Phase 2. Why wouldn't there be a Phase 2? Your Commander Valari made a choice. Martinez continued. He chose pride over wisdom. He chose war over peace. That was his right as a military leader. But now, people of Vroth, you have a choice too. Do you want this to continue? Do you want to see your cities burning, your homes destroyed, your families killed? She leaned forward and her expression became very serious. Or do you want to live? Because I promise you we will let you live. We will accept your surrender. We will help you rebuild. We will even, given time and genuine reform, welcome you back into the galactic community. But you have to choose. You have to choose peace. There was a long pause. You have 1 hour, she said. Talk among yourselves, talk to your families, talk to your leaders, decide what kind of future you want. We'll be waiting. The transmission ended. What happened next, I did not expect. The streets of Vroth City filled with people. Not soldiers, not government officials, just regular Vrothians. They gathered in the central plaza in front of the government complex, and they started chanting, "Surrender, surrender, surrender." It started with hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. They weren't angry, they weren't violent, they were just tired. Tired of Vrel's pride, tired of pointless wars, tired of watching their ships get torn apart in space. They wanted to live. It was that simple. Vrel watched the crowds from his office window. I stood beside him not knowing what to say. They're right, he said finally. I was a fool. We all were. We saw what we wanted to see. We believed what we wanted to believe. We thought being strong meant never backing down. He turned to look at me. But the humans taught us something today. Being strong means knowing when to fight and when to stop. It means having the power to destroy but choosing mercy instead. It means being tough enough to admit when you're wrong. He took a deep breath. Send a transmission to the human fleet. Unconditional surrender. All terms accepted. And just like that, the war was over. The humans were professional. That's the best word I can use. They accepted our surrender, took custody of the individuals responsible for the deaths of their crew members, received reparations, and then, and this is the part that still amazes me, they helped. Human engineering teams helped repair our damaged ships. Human medical personnel treated our wounded. Human diplomats worked with our government to establish new treaties, new trade agreements, new relationships based on actual respect instead of assumed superiority. Ambassador Martinez personally oversaw the transition. I met with her several times during the occupation, which is what we called it even though it didn't really feel like an occupation. It felt more like rehabilitation. Why? I asked her during one meeting. Why help us after what we did? She smiled that same smile, but now I understood it. It wasn't naive. It wasn't weak. It was the smile of someone who had seen the absolute worst of what violence could do and had chosen kindness anyway. Because holding grudges is exhausting, she said. Because revenge is a cycle that never ends. Because we learned a long time ago on Earth that the only way to actually win a war is to turn your enemy into a friend. That's very philosophical, I said. It's very practical, she corrected. We could have annihilated you. We could have taken your worlds, enslaved your people, ground you into dust, and then what? We'd have an empire built on fear and hatred. We'd have to constantly watch for rebellion. We'd become the very thing we fought against. She looked out the window at Vroth City, where Vrothian children were playing in the street, laughing and chasing each other around human peacekeepers who were handing out candy. This is better, she said. This is how you actually win. You show people there's a better way. You prove that strength and kindness aren't opposites. You build something that lasts. The Galactic Assembly held a special session, 3 months after the war ended. Every species sent representatives. Everyone wanted to understand what had happened. How had humanity hidden such power? Why had they revealed it? What did this mean for the future? Admiral Kowalski spoke, his first public appearance since the war. He stood at the central podium, still wearing that uniform with all the decorative metal, and he looked tired, but also relieved. Humanity didn't hide our military, he explained. We just didn't advertise it. When we joined the assembly, we hoped we'd never need it. We hoped the galaxy had moved beyond the kind of conflicts we'd experienced on Earth. We were wrong, but we weren't sorry we tried. He looked around the chamber. We've been asked why we built such a large fleet if we wanted peace. The answer is simple. On Earth we have a saying, peace through strength. If you want peace, you need to be strong enough that no one dares attack you. But you also need to be wise enough to use that strength carefully. And what about total war? Someone asked from the gallery. You threatened total war. What did you mean? Kowalski's expression became grim. Total war is what humanity practiced on itself for thousands of years. It's the mobilization of every resource, every citizen, every bit of technology toward a single goal, the complete defeat of your enemy. It's brutal. It's terrible. It's something we hoped we'd never have to show the galaxy. But you did show us, the questioner persisted. You destroyed the Vrothian fleet in minutes. That wasn't total war, Kowalski said quietly. That was us being gentle. Total war would have meant no prisoners, no mercy, no rebuilding afterward. Total war would have meant the complete erasure of Vrothian civilization. We didn't do that. We won't do that. But we can. And that's what we wanted the galaxy to understand. He paused, letting that sink in. Humanity is offering the galaxy a deal. We'll keep our fleets in reserve. We'll continue to pursue peace, trade, cooperation, and friendship. We'll be the artists, the musicians, the diplomats, the friendly neighbors. But if anyone at all, decides to test us again, his voice became hard as steel. We'll remind them why you don't pick fights with a species that spent 10,000 years becoming the most efficient killers in the known universe before we finally decided we were tired of killing each other. The chamber was silent. Then Ambassador Martinez stood up. But we hope it never comes to that, she said, her voice warm and kind. We genuinely hope it never comes to that. Because we really do prefer friendship to warfare. We really do want peace. We just need you all to believe us when we say that choosing peace is a choice, not a weakness.
The Assembly voted that day to formally censure the Vrothian Dominion for its actions and to commend humanity for its restraint. They also somewhat nervously voted to grant humanity permanent seats on all major councils.
No one wanted to risk making the same mistake twice. As for me, I was reassigned. The Vrothian government, in its wisdom, decided that someone who had seen firsthand what humanity was capable of should probably be in charge of our diplomatic relations with them. So now I'm Ambassador Carthex, Chief Liaison to the United Earth Nations. I work every day with humans, negotiating treaties, felicitating trade, building friendships. And every single day, I remember those 11 minutes at Proxima Centauri. I remember the 23 minutes at Vroth. I remember the sound of our ships being systematically disabled by an enemy that could have destroyed us but chose not to. I remember, so that no one ever forgets. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Humanity is dangerous, incredibly, terrifyingly dangerous. They have technology we don't understand, tactics we can't predict, and a capacity for violence that makes our worst nightmares look tame. But they're also kind, they're also merciful. They're also willing to help rebuild what they destroy if you just admit you were wrong. The trick, I tell anyone who will listen, is to never ever make them drop the mask. Because behind all that art, music, literature, diplomacy, and friendship, there's a predator species that clawed its way to the top of its own food chain and then decided to start building civilizations just to see if they could. They can be your best friend or your worst nightmare. The choice, thankfully, is yours. Just choose wisely. Trust me on that one. Well, the end.
The galaxy learned that day. Humanity's smile hides fangs enough to tear civilization apart, yet gentle enough to rebuild them. They choose peace, not from weakness, but from strength. The Rathian Dominion gambled and lost everything. Now, the question echoes across every star system: will anyone dare test humanities again?